Zimmer Communications World Headquarters. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Get ready, pal.
Here's your host, Randy Tobler.
As this massive attack illustrates, there's a lot of opposition to people just hearing what President Trump has to say.
Well, that's Elon Musk off of another failed start to a relaunch of a campaign. Seems like deja vu all over again. Welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Elon Musk and Donald Trump 45 minutes late on the Spaces meeting last night, and there was a blockage of what's it called, a DDoS.
Are you reading the liberal talking points this morning? Because all of them opened this morning with, oh my gosh, it was 45 minutes late, but it actually worked. And according to Elon, more than 1 million people viewed it. And I think it's a game changer. I think, it draws such a stark contrast between Kamala, who won't talk to anybody, and Trump, who'll talk to everybody.
That's Stephanie Bell back from a meeting with very interesting meeting and
with Trump.
With Trump.
Well, I
private meeting with Trump. You're going to produce some audio this morning? No. So down in Florida, right near Trump land, right?
Yeah, just about 10 minutes away from Mar-a-Lago. Yeah. We were at the Breakers, and I tweeted this, and I think some of you saw because I think Brian Hauswirth retweeted it. But I've been to Florida. I've been to the Panhandle. I've been to Orlando. I never really got people's obsession with Florida. Palm Beach is a different ball game. It was hot, but it was beautiful. Yeah. But yeah, hanging out with about 300 lawyers there for a Republican National Lawyers Conference. This is our national election law seminar. So some of the preeminent conservative lawyers on the were in attendance. And these are the kind of people who are on the ground on election day in all of the big states, who are preparing to be on the ground on election day in all of the battleground states. And so learning from each other, talking about what went right and what went wrong in the past. The whole thing is actually off the record. So I'm not going to speak to what anyone in particular said, but certainly there's been some things that have been publicized. And of course, the highlight of the weekend was when President Trump called over a lunch, and his lawyer, his main campaign lawyer, was in attendance, David Warrington. He was speaking and said, "Oh, hold on, I have this really important phone call," and then just held his cell phone up to the microphone. Trump proceeded to address the crowd, I think for about 20 minutes, thanking all of the lawyers for the work, and then
somebody got a super special shout out,
giving a personal shout out to Mark Ellinger as the chair, but also cool. to Michael Thielen, who is the president of the organization, and for their work in recruiting attorney volunteers, which we know is really important to the Trump campaign. And so that was super special. And even, Trump, and then I think much to a lot of folks' surprise over the phone, Trump said, and I'll take some questions. And does anyone have any questions? Well, yeah, Trump, I think 300 people in the room have questions, but that part was pretty brief. But it was a fun moment, and certainly, I mean, Trump's made that a focus, and we heard it right here on our program from Laura Trump that they're, actively recruiting attorneys and volunteers and poll watchers and poll workers for the fall, because election integrity is really important.
And we're just 2 weeks.
Did you give him a personal message for Elon or anything?
I didn't have the opportunity to do that, but it was pretty cool.
So last night I tried to tune into the Spaces thing at the time designated, and couldn't get on. Tried again, couldn't get on. Something about, then I got a message it didn't work on the mobile device or the iPad. So then I tried a different device.
Like a zillion people on there, weren't there?
And then finally I saw that this was a distributed denial of service attack, a DDoS, a cyber attack, as Catherine Herridge was reporting. And as Elon Musk said at the time, they were working on it. And it's remarkable. It only took 45 minutes to fix that massive attack. Apparently what they do is they overwhelm the servers there, despite their test, which was for 8 million viewers. And they just overwhelm it with traffic and bring it down. So it's a malicious attempt. And this is now in the wake of the Trump campaign claiming that they were the victims of a cyber attack as well, or hacking or something. I don't know how Trump can win this election, frankly. I mean, if he can't get his voice out, it's 1984, and everyone's hearing Kamala Harris on their feeds, which are manipulated by the mainstream media and in many of the social media feeds as well. I mean, the odds are stacked against him.
2 quick points, and I think some folks on our Facebook page were telling us, hey, this is the way that you can listen to it. So Trump has a lot of podcasters and live streamers and other people that had picked up the feed and then were basically playing, I guess, streaming live the X space, but like through their own YouTube. And so some of those channels had huge numbers. And so those people that, and that's how I first got to it, was through someone else's YouTube channel that they had gotten into the space, and I was unable to do that. And so I think that's one way that Trump is really going to get his message out. And clearly, he is getting his message out. The other thing is, I think, but I think at the same time, we have to remember that, how many people on that stream were just, have Trump derangement syndrome and were just lefties trying to listen in and watch exactly how it all went down. And again, Twitter, I think some people in Missouri learned this lesson on primary day, but Facebook likes and Twitter likes and listens aren't votes, right? And so it's great that he got maybe 1 million people to listen to his face last night, but how do we get those people out to the polls? I think that's really the question. And I think, today you're going to hear, this from the left, I think you're going to hear, it was late. Oh my gosh, it didn't work. And from Trump and Elon, you're going to hear, it was the most votes most votes ever, or not most votes, most listeners ever on Twitter. And I think both of those, neither one of those are votes, right?
How many of the tens of thousands? Is it 50? Is it 70? Is it 80? We don't know. It was 70 in 2016, 50,000-ish in 2020 that made the difference. How many of those people are on X at 8 o'clock at night Eastern time, 7 o'clock, Central, listening, trying desperately, searching for a YouTuber streaming a failed X Spaces? I have not heard. I think at this point the polls would, validate my concern that the Trump campaign is on its heels. The best spokesman at this point is J.D. Vance. Donald Trump continues to talk about borders and the governor of Georgia and the 2020 election. I didn't hear it last night. I hope he didn't dwell on that too much. It's being reported that people inside his campaign are desperately pleading with him to stay to the facts. Here's J.D. Vance with Dana Vash, and if Donald Trump would do more of this, I think I'd feel more confident 2 weeks ahead of early voting.
It's important to point this out, Dana. Their entire campaign has not been about, here's our policy for how we're going to make your life better, or here's what's wrong with Donald Trump and J.D. Vance's policies. We're going to name call and hope that you don't notice that we don't have an agenda. That is the entire Democrat approach to this election. They have done both. They have both policies, and they are trying to define Dana, you as well. If you go to Kamala Harris's campaign page right now, they still don't have a policy. Well, let's talk about policy.
And this is what she did. This is what the media does. They will let Kamala Harris and Tim Walz tell lie after lie and twist the truth and name call and everything else, and they'll sit there and let them do it. Every time that J.D. Vance made a valid point that's absolutely backed up by truth, no policy on the website, I want to move on. And she did that over and over and over. Shame on her. She's an embarrassment to journalism. Brian Hauswirth and John Marsh are just like they're shaking their heads. Their eyes are rolling. You don't, when a guy's making a comment, you follow up. You don't say, I want to move on. And I'm telling you, this campaign is against a Leviathan in the media like I have never seen in my life. I've never seen anything like this, Stephanie.
And I think that's why the Elon and Trump conversation was so refreshing, because typically this is what we get. We get this, and no one, when you get backed up like that, and when you're in, when you're playing gotcha, right, you don't see, and I think Elon brought this up, you don't see the real person. You don't get an authentic response. You don't get to learn, and Trump had some really funny moments in the Elon interview last night, but you really got to spend time with him, and that's not what you get. And I hope, we talk a little bit about it on our show. We get folks on here that we don't agree with. We get folks on here that we, and I think we ask tough questions, but we never play gotcha, and we let people say their piece. And here, clearly, J.D. Vance, she was just cutting him off and moving on, and it just makes for a bad interview. Let the guy talk.
But despite that, he ripped her to pieces. He really did a great job. But it's always on defensive. You're right.
It really is. And so I think that's what I found super refreshing about the conversation. It really was a conversation. Two guys sitting around over a cup of coffee, it felt like, last night with Elon and Trump, who maybe don't agree. And in some instances, they didn't agree, but they had a respectful conversation about the ways in which they disagreed.
So the challenge, though, is that most people are not listening to X at 9 o'clock Eastern at night. They are in the airports watching CNN. That's the problem. That's the challenge. And look, we've got another week. Trump and his campaign were not ready for what happened. I don't know why they weren't ready, but by all objective standards, they weren't ready. And the day and the media storm and the noise has been taken over by the Kamala campaign. It reminds me of Obama in 2008. It really does. And all style, no substance, very little style. But for the people that listen to that kind of stuff, that's what they like. They like the brash. They like the cackling. They like the you're all coconuts. That's what they listen to. Most of the people in this country are now in tune with the style of Kamala Harris. Most serious-minded people are in tune with the style of Trump and Vance. Well, mostly Trump when he talks about the border, the economy, China. That's going to do it. Look, have you seen the latest polls? I don't know where it was, but it was a pollster was saying the polls that are getting at voter engagement and excitement are showing decreased engagement and excitement and energy among the GOP. Why is that? What's going on? What's happened? Because on Amendment 4 down in Florida the other day, he was asked about Amendment 4, which is basically like this initiative petition, which I know you want to talk about because the deadline for certification is today, tomorrow?
Today.
Today. Amendment 4 is like that. He was asked at a gathering in Florida what he felt about that. He didn't say it's abhorrent. He didn't say it. He's going to lose excitement among his base, which is a disaster. You talk about a disaster, one of his favorite words. He has got to be able to say, look, I am absolutely against some of these crazy amendments that have been in the states. However, I recognize there are people in other states that disagree. That's why we did what we did. And he has got to start regathering the troops in his base. The excitement, the energy level is down. I don't know whether people are demoralized or not. This is not me speaking. This is pollsters speaking.
Well, I know, but a decrease from when? A decrease from 2020 or a decrease from a couple of weeks ago? Because we got a huge bump off of, let's be honest, off of the assassination attempt. People were re-energized, right after that. And then we went right into the convention, which you always get a bump of excitement and a bump in the polls after your convention. And now Kamala is enjoying that honeymoon. She gets a little bit of a honeymoon after being announced as the pick, and then they're rolling right into a convention. And so, sure, maybe there's a decrease from a couple of weeks ago just because things have settled down a little bit. But I agree with you, Randy. And I think overall, talking to my Republican friends this weekend, they have grave concerns, I think. And there was a real concern about being overconfident and about the polling and about the bump from Kamala and whether or not and how it's a totally different ballgame than it was just 6 weeks ago.
And I want to make a point, too, getting back to what Stephanie brings up very good points there. And I expect this race to tighten up after Labor Day for sure. But you talked about the interview with Dana Bash, cutting him off and stuff. Probably the best interviewer that did these political interviews, and he ended up resigning in disgrace for some things he was doing off air, but it was Charlie Rose. Charlie Rose actually had a show on PBS where he would bring people in on both sides of the aisle, and he would ask tough questions, but they would sit down for an hour and talk about issues in detail. You don't see that anymore. You're right about these interviews are about flash and this and that. Very little substance, very little specifics. But I'm not sure the people really get it. Not our listeners. Our listeners do. But the people out there, they watch Kimmel, shows like that. They don't know the issues.
Our listeners get it.
Our listeners
but
know
the people that are going to make the difference.
Exactly.
Right.
They don't. And I'm not sure the audience that was watching the Charlie Rose show that I'm talking about, 2007-8, that they understood, they got it. And I'm sure he had Democrats and Republicans. I'm not sure. I look at Twitter. A lot of these people that comment, they have no idea what they're talking about. Yeah. They don't. I'm not talking about national issues.
It saddens me. It just saddens me that when you have the wind at your back from a policy and a historical performance perspective, that you're not doing a better job. I mean, and look, I'm criticizing Trump loudly because he needs to be reformed. He said some things about his run.
I already saw Elon tweet out, like, can someone clip this down to an hour so we can repost it? Because I think that's what most people want to see. So if you haven't heard bits and pieces of that, you're sure to hear more. Of course, the House and the Senate are out until after Labor Day. A lot of our congressional delegation certainly is back in the state. I've been following Eric Schmidt on Twitter. He's been all over the place. So you should follow him too. He's been at yesterday. He was talking to leaders in the geospatial technology industry there in St. Louis. He also visited Rawlings Sports and put in some batting practice. He's been on the congressional team, but then also visited with leaders at Rankin Jordan. So it's a fun time to have all of them back in the state and visiting our businesses and local communities. I suspect we will see many of them, Hannah and I, at the state fair later this week. So that's exciting. It is
I think Eric Schmidt's going to be in town here supporting Jesus Osete for a fundraiser. Yeah.
Yes.
So he's all over the state. And he'll be in Springfield?
Sedalia.
In Sedalia?
Sedalia.
Yeah.
I suspect he will be there. It is primary day in 4 states today, Connecticut, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Vermont. So elections to watch there. Of course, Ilhan Omar is on the ballot, but I don't think we're going to go 3 for 3 of knocking off squad members, Randy. But there are some races to watch, so we'll be talking about those tomorrow. Some other ballot access issues. The Green Party is going to appear on the ballot in Nevada, potentially being a spoiler. And then also yesterday, a New York State judge ruled that RFK doesn't have a valid residence in the state, and that could create some ballot access issues for him, even in other states. And then we're also looking at, as we talk to our congressional leaders, we've been talking a lot about spending and the deficit, and what we're finding out is interest costs in the first 10 months of this fiscal year were up 32% from 2023. So something has to be done.
And who's going to touch that hot rail first? That's that rail no one wants to touch, right?
Yeah.
When Paul Ryan tried to do it, look what they said, throwing Granny over the cliff, and it's stuck, All right, that's it for the Daily DC Rundown. When we come back, there's a story behind that Elon Musk story. We need to talk about it.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know what's going on. I don't think the president knows how everybody is living right now.
in St. Louis. Are you okay? Have you been rescued?
I have not been rescued. It's been quite a few years. It's been quite a few years since I have been in the Arch. But that is one of my nightmare scenarios, and those that have been in that thing knows it's a claustrophobic kind of thing, and I would hate to get stuck in that. So
I've only done that once, and that was enough. I know what you mean, man. Speaking of claustrophobia, I think many people observing the scene in the Republican presidential ticket campaign have wondered, are they claustrophobic about getting the offensive in this time? It seems like they've been on their heels a little bit trying to get back. Last night, good effort at that, little delayed. Did you hear some or all of the X spaces with Elon and Trump?
I did not. I did read about it this morning. I figured what happened, that the thing crashed. I figured it was probably going to happen again. And I read it did crash for about an hour till they got all the technical difficulties out of the way. Look, Kamala Harris has been the nominee now for probably about a couple of weeks. She's taking no question. She's gotten a lot of flack for that. She has said that she will have a press conference by the end of the month, which is another 2 weeks. The Democratic convention is next week, so I figure they're going to let her slide for at least another week and start questioning her a little harder about doing interviews. They are starting a little bit. Washington Post and the New York Times have come out with some editorials saying that she needs to do interviews, but they're not really forcing the issue, Dr. Tobler.
Chris, I'm taking some heat here because I came out of the barrel critical of Donald Trump, but he's not been as disciplined. I'm not alone. It's being reported that inside his own campaign, they are pleading, was the word used. I forget who reported it, Politico, Washington, someone. They're pleading with him to stay on the issues. That's the winning ticket, and not worry about Governor Brian Kemp and some feud he's got in Georgia and go back and relitigate 2020 and everything. You put that kind of misguided energy in the context of headwinds from the Kamala Harris campaign in concert with the media. There's only 2 weeks till early voting. I'm not panicking, but in the environment where we cannot afford to lose this election, we must win. What does the populace? What do his supporters? How do we get to Trump's head to have him get on the stick and to have a real campaign here that speaks to the middle that'll make the difference, Chris Arps?
Look, even though Kamala Harris has been surging in the polls, you have to also look at that Donald Trump hasn't dropped in the polls. He's still slightly ahead in some polls, slightly behind in some. So I don't think it's reason to panic yet. He does need to stay focused on the issues. This is his race to win. I don't understand why he was relitigating 2020 and going against Brian Raffensperger and the governor of Georgia. All that is not necessary. This is his race to lose if he stays focused. And the whole question is race to win. The whole focus is, can he do that? I'm hoping that after Labor Day, when we'll see more contrast ads and people are really starting to pay more attention to this race, I hope that will make him more focused.
Chris, with all the talk we're hearing about potential Iranian hackers and hackers left and right, how confident are you about election security this time around, sort of like 2020?
Well, when it comes to the election security and hacking into voting machines and all that, I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is the propaganda value of Iran and China and all these other state entities trying to disrupt our elections with propaganda. That's what I am afraid the most about.
All right, we're talking to Chris Arps. And Chris, I got to tell you, brother, I think there's such a great opportunity here for the different stances to be made and to be said. Somehow the Trump campaign has to figure out how to get on the social media that those 50, 60, 80,000 voters will be viewing is one problem. But, we were talking earlier among us here in the studio. It's like, this DDoS thing is an example potentially of election interference by some outside source, where someone, from what I understand, this was not just too many people trying to tune into X. This was a matter of a targeted attack on the servers to overwhelm it with fake robotic requests for listening. Okay, So you got that. Then you've got the Trump campaign, we don't know if it's true or not, and I think federal officials are investigating it. They're claiming that there's been a hack into their campaign, and you got to wonder, where's the security? I mean, he didn't get Secret Service security, physically speaking. Mm-hmm. Now, is the government going to somehow not give him some kind of cybersecurity too because of a lax environment? Am I too tinfoil hat wearing or not?
No, but I mean, look, my wife is an IT expert, and I ask her all the time, how come you can't make these computer systems so that they're secure? I don't understand how someone can always find some little backdoor or some little thing in order to get into these systems. That's just the nature of the beast. These campaigns have to be more vigilant when it comes to securing their emails and their servers. I mean, the easy way that these actors are getting into these machines, they'll send them like an email, and it'll look legitimate and everything, and somebody within the campaign will open it, and that will make all of the information available to them. I mean, these phishing schemes are not overly sophisticated. It's just the campaigns need to be more vigilant in the emails that they receive.
Individually are going to have a new congressperson since the last time we talked to you. I know Ilhan Omar is on the ballot today in a primary. I don't think we're going to go 3 for 3 and knocking off squad members. Here in mid-Missouri, I think we hear a lot about the national narrative about squad members, but you're actually in that district on the ground. What's the vibe and feeling like after last week's election?
I think the vibe is a sense of relief that finally our national embarrassment, which is Cori Bush, will be gone. I mean, she didn't represent most of the people in the 1st Congressional District. She certainly didn't represent me. And if you look at St. Louis County, she lost St. Louis County very badly, and she barely won North City, which was her citadel of votes there that helped her win. So we're all have a sigh of relief here. Wesley Bell is not exactly a Republican or a conservative, but he's going to be a hell of a lot better than Cori Bush. And what a lot of people don't know, and I didn't bring it up during the campaign because I didn't want to screw him up, but Wesley Bell was a Republican at one time. In the early 2000s, I used to attend young Republican meetings with him.
Wow.
Then around 2006, 2007, 2008, around that term, he became a Democrat and ran for Ferguson City Council and all of that. But Wesley Bell was a Republican at one time.
Chris, your thoughts about the Ferguson, they weren't so peaceful protests. They resulted in a severe brain injury to an African-American officer who is part of a cadre of officers that they brought into the force in response to the imbalance in racial quotas, if you will, there on the force. And I mean, I can't make sense of that kind of behavior. Can you help me understand that, Chris, what happened over the weekend?
I think what these people demonstrated is black lives don't truly matter, and only black lives of people that are involved in criminal activity are the ones that matter. Look, the statement that the police chief gave was right on. He said, I don't understand why these people are protesting. All of the officers that were there in 2014 are gone. They've gone through all of the training that the Justice Department has wanted them to go through. He even said we changed the freaking uniforms of the Ferguson Police Department. They are not the same. And he doesn't understand why people are protesting and wanting to destroy things. What I think it is ultimately, and these are people who don't have a lot going on in their life. They feel that life has not been fair to them, and they're basically angry people. And so they have to take that anger out on somebody. And right now, the target is the police. And I think it's unfair, and I hope that this officer that's fighting for his life recovers. I mean, this young man should really think about what he's doing. He's out there protesting, angry, trying to make a name for himself. I don't know. But if this officer dies, just think of the charges that he's going to be charged. He already has a $500,000 bond, and this is a special victim that I read that he's being called. Just think if this officer dies. His bail will probably go up to $1 million, and he's going to be facing some serious time, all because he couldn't control his anger and got caught up in the mob.
It's really an interesting analysis. And, Chris, it's not just this young man. The people around him have not discouraged him. he lives in an environment, as you said, of anger and victim mentality, and I'm owed something. I'm entitled to something, and if I don't get it, I'm just going to go out and be angry and act out. And I think it's a societal problem. And you look at, I don't see that getting better under a Harris-Walz administration, because that's their octane, right? It's the victim mentality and the identity politics.
And what makes it worse, Dr. Tobler, is these people are angry. They're protesting. They're tearing up things based on a lie that has been debunked by Bob McCullough's office, by Wesley Bell's office, 2 investigations by the Obama administration. They are angry and are fed up over a lie. And that's the thing that's the most discouraging and sad to me. You're doing all this over a lie.
It's embarrassing. Okay, final thoughts. What's your roundup, your postmortem on the primary last Tuesday? We haven't talked to you since then.
Well, you have a new congressman in the 3rd district. He won pretty handily. I'm hoping now that the primary is over, we will never hear the name Valentina Gomez ever again, and she goes away. The governor's race surprised me that Jay Ashcroft, with his name ID and everything, came in 3rd place, and that he was the actual spoiler, not Bill Eigel.
Yeah. Eigel had a good showing, and it'll be interesting to see. And we saw some outsiders. Denny Hoskins, Secretary of State, Freedom Caucus win there. Dave Wassinger, sort of an outsider, wants to stir things up a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how this all settles out come January of next year, assuming the GOP nominees prevail.
Exactly, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Denny Hoskins. We've had him on the show many times. I like him, but I mean, there were 8 or 9 people in that race, and he won with 24%.
Yeah, be interesting to see.
You know what I mean?
I know, I got it. All right, well, and like people have said, even though Mike Keogh is like one of the most stand-up people people were calling the program and texting and saying, well, wait a minute, he didn't get 60% of the votes,
39%.
So I don't know. I mean, I just pray and hope literally that we can get coalescence in what is a big, wide, and should be so successful GOP tent, not only in Missouri, but across. the latest innovations in teaching and science. You know, we talk about healthcare. We're right on top of it here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. So Hannah, real quickly, could you just do the ABC song? How do you do that? Go ahead, sing it.
Do you want me to? Because
Please.
I know the answer to your
Just go ahead and sing
here.
it. Go ahead and sing it.
The way I normally would.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm ready.
A B C D E F G H I J K L M N O P.
Okay, but that's wrong. As one tweeter said, my 5-year-old twins have informed me I sing the alphabet song wrong. That's the way we all sing it. And but there's a gal named Rachel who's a teacher, and she says, it's true. They changed the alphabet song for a good reason.
Y'all, it's true. I'm a teacher, and I don't teach the alphabet the way I grew up singing it. And this is one of the reasons, because kids hear L-M-N-O-P, and they don't say the individual letter names. Some even think that this is one letter. Another reason is because at the end of the traditional alphabet song, we sing Y and Z, and some kids think that YN is a letter or NZ is a letter. So instead we sing it A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Now I never will forget how to say the alphabet.
Okay, aren't we? See how progressive we are here on this show? We're up to the latest, John Marsh, the latest in educational truth and teaching our young people how to learn their alphabets. There
How
you
about
go.
that? Man, we had NSYNC as bumper music. How much more hip could we be?
We're so triggered by the fact that kids might be a little bit confused that we have to change something that's been working since like the beginning of time.
Did you ever think LMNOP was one letter?
No.
I mean, one word, I don't know.
None of my kids had that either, which I get it.
Your kids are geniuses, though. I mean,
I'll see if I can pull it up because I think I have all of my kids singing the alphabet and identifying letters at literally at age 2.
Yeah.
But we did a lot of flashcards. We did a lot of singing. And then what's interesting to me about this, though, specifically, is that I've also learned that in elementary school now, or not we have primary and elementary, but K-5, that they don't care about spelling until they start doing spelling tests. But in writing, they if they'll write a little paragraph, and as long as you got the phonetics right, the spelling can be terrible. And they don't but I remember, Randy, you remember this? You used to get the red pen, right? And it'd be like that, you spelled that
they
wrong.
don't use red pens anymore.
Oh no, they don't. And and they're like, well, eventually it'll as long as they are sounding it out and it and it's phonetically correct, they say it basically will correct itself later.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. But
spell check saves lives. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know anyone that didn't learn their ABCs with the help of this song. And like you say, even if you have some like Y and Z, was it Y and Z, Y and Z? You still learn it.
Yeah, I think it should. Why do we don't change a classic? Come on, there are some classics for a reason.
And get off our lawn.
And Stephanie, I know we've had some reports about a serious accident, a car and a truck colliding on I-70.
Yeah, tractor trailer and passenger vehicle eastbound I-70, 144-mile marker. That's near Kingdom City. So if you're in that area, use caution. I think things are moving a little bit slow.
I wonder if it's this side of, like, between Kingdom and Columbia where the traffic, the narrows down and the construction is happening or not. We'll learn more. I know Brian is working on that. John, are you hearing anything on your news wires?
Yeah, just what Steph said. There was apparently at least 2 vehicles involved and traffic jammed up for quite a ways. So, yeah, if you want to avoid I-70, might be a real good idea.
All right. And if you are caught in that mess or observing it maybe the other direction, let us know. 573-874-9390. Helene headed out to North Carolina last evening because Shannon's going to be delivering today sometime, and I told her, I said, as you go through that construction zone on your way to St. Louis, be extra careful. These slowdowns happen suddenly. You come over a little rise, and next thing you know, there's red lights, and
isn't all of St. Louis a construction zone right now, and has been for a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I was talking between here and Kingdom City, because they have the narrowing of the lanes. I don't know how much construction is. Last time I went through there a week and a half ago, there wasn't much going on, but there were, the preparations were underway. So
right.
All right. So keep an eye on it. 573-874-9390. We were talking with Chris Arps about this, the tram that got stuck at the St. Louis Arch. I've only done that once in my life, and that was enough, thank you. It's a weird feeling. You've done it, right?
Did it in school. That was the last time.
Yeah.
I'd done it twice because I did it like in the Girl Scouts when I was very young, but then I had to take my kiddos, and that's probably been within the last 5 years. But
and how old were they then?
I don't know, like elementary school age.
Okay.
But you're like in a little egg pod on a rope, it seems like.
No windows, right?
Not really.
I recall it sort of creaking, making adjustments,
yes.
like ratchet kind of adjustments as
you're
going
up and you're going over.
Right, yeah.
The best thing I can compare it to, and it's still not a perfect comparison. Have you ever been on a really sketchy Ferris wheel?
Yes.
And it's open to the air so you can see around you.
Sketchy.
So it's like a sketchy Ferris wheel, but you're enclosed and you can't really see out of anything.
Well,
and every time it moves and creaks, you wonder if that's the end.
Well, and what's worse is that then you get up to the top and you're in this small confined space. You can spend as much time really as you want up there, but you can actually feel the arch swaying a bit. But if you really didn't like the ride up, the only way down is to get back in one of those tiny pods and then come back down. Now, I don't know that all. I mean, after yesterday's story, people were stuck there for hours. They had to do some sort of rescue mission. I don't think I'll ever get back on there.
Yeah, no, I have been stuck in a small elevator before, very briefly for just a few minutes. And I can only imagine the panic that I felt in that situation amplified by 10,000.
Now, I will say, if you don't want to go up in the arch, they, several years ago, they essentially redid the base of the arch and the museum and everything else. And that is really cool. And it happened to be when I visited the last time with my kiddos, they were having some sort of anniversary celebration. And so there were many men, probably in their 70s and 80s, that had helped build the arch.
Yeah.
And they could point to the pictures of the people who were suspended, and they're like, that's me, or sitting. It was
cool.
Terrifying, but they had some really cool stories.
Yeah, they built that. It's almost, about 1966, I believe, is when it was completed. You're absolutely right about that. And I remember Dad telling me about it. They brought the steel in from Pittsburgh. It was all brought in. Not one worker, by the way, lost their lives on that project. They were literally up there. Stephanie's right. They bring those workers back every decade or so, but they were up there with no harnesses. They were literally up in the sky, which is incredible. And also, what a lot of people forget, Randy, you may remember this, there was a guy in 1981 that came out of a plane and came down on a parachute and landed on top of the arch.
I remember.
What?
He was, yes, he did. And his actually, my mother knew this guy.
I think he was summarily arrested.
No, he wasn't arrested.
No,
he died.
okay?
He died. The
He
parachute
died.
went. The parachute.
That's right.
slid down. The guy was from Overland, and my mother knew him.
There's guys that have tried to climb the arch.
And the guy the one you're thinking of called Y98, guy named Guy Phillips, and called him, and the police got there, and he was already 15 minutes up on, and he climbed to the top. Yes, he was arrested, that guy, but the guy that landed on the from the parachute
didn't work out well.
My understanding is he was apparently doing that for a television show, and it was a horrible, but the just a lot of history there, but very scary. They had to bring the fire department in for the people yesterday.
I remember I was a little tot in early grade school when they put in the crowning, segment, the little wedge at the very top, and the flag was flying, and crane, I think a big crane of some type, because they brought it up segment by segment with cranes. Right. And I remember, they shut down instruction in the school. That was a big deal. That was like a moon landing. I mean, it was a huge deal.
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, I have a live report from last night, very, very late. I did get into Columbia, but the construction on it's not a restaurant, but they've started, they've taken down that main wall, and it looks like the vending area in the airport now is in motion, which we've been kind of waiting on since the new terminal was built.
I did notice you had your rice cakes this morning.
Yeah, I grabbed a rice cake on my way back in.
There's a serious question we have to ask. Will this cafe or this place for dining, will this supplant the rice cakes, or will this be in addition to rice cakes?
I think it's going to be an addition.
I'm
hoping,
so,
because those things are so yummy.
And we've had basically the vendor on this show, and he gave and there's a lot of interest because a lot of more people using the airport. Columbia definitely needs an upgrade. I mean, they got the vending machines and stuff, but if you go to Jefferson City, just 28 miles to the south, they have a restaurant there at the airport. It does extremely well, and Nick's before that. But Columbia has just not had a lot of success.
We had our maiden voyage from the Columbia airport. We went down to Dallas for a direct primary care conference in June. We had a delightful experience there. I mean, it was great. I mean, on the way down, the rice cakes, I think Stephanie must have been there before us. There were no rice cakes left. And on the way back, though, there were plenty of rice cakes, so we did get a chance to do that. And I was kidding with some of the TSA people and the police officers that were there, and it was a good chuckle. But man,
for you or for them?
For both of us. No, it was good.
I'm sure it's one of those they've heard it all day long. They're like, yeah, I know. The rice cakes are gone.
I think that speaks to their professionalism.
I'm amazed that Kraft Heinz hasn't stepped up and provided free hot dogs.
There you go.
For everybody there.
No, they certainly have the supplies because they're the largest, actually the only plant in North America that makes Oscar Mayer hot dogs. So,
but you know why
they could?
You know why that would be a problem? Because you're dealing with warmed items, and there's food safety, and the USDA, and probably the European Union will come in, and the regulatory environment is so heinous.
You can eat a cold hot dog.
Well, it's going to be like super vending, I think, there at the airport. And the folks that we talked to were Jackson Brothers of the North.
Yes.
That was the company. And they were kind of explaining it like one of those little mini, like what you see in big airports, actually, those little mini marts that aren't really hot, not a lot of hot food, but there would be like fresh food that would be available, so I'm looking forward to it. And I thought I've been kind of watching and waiting and watching and waiting, and we were told when that new terminal opened that there would be food.
That's right.
And so to see the construction actually happening was pretty cool.
That's sort of like convenience store style gas station with hot food. That's Randy's dream.
Well, it is, but the Ready Board is meeting tomorrow over at Mizzou. I'll be over at that meeting, and I certainly will ask Mayor Buffalo what she's hearing about the restaurant. But they envision, I know we're talking about the rice cakes and stuff, but what they envision all along was a sit-down restaurant where people can eat, and you would not have to fly on an airplane to be able to eat at the restaurant. Now, they did have one in there years ago.
It was on the second floor, wasn't it?
It was on the second floor, and it was, I'd say, Randy, it was back in the late 70s. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it's been gone for years.
I do remember that, man. It was back in the day of Ozark Airlines.
Yep, I remember.
It was in there, and it was still there when Reagan came up there in 1987. 87, it was still around, but not much after that. And there have been maybe a few others that have tried, but they have not had the issue is a lot of people use that route to get from Columbia to Jeff City, but they didn't stop in there to eat as much.
I do have a question concerning the Columbia Airport. So there was, the overflow parking was almost full on the day we went. It was middle of the week. I mean, it seems like it's really, I feel a lot of momentum. There was a lot of traffic in and out, a lot of cars parked. Is there a plan to pave the entire thing? Because there's a lot of rockiness going, and when you're trying to drag your little, your case over that, it'd be nice to have that paved.
So they added the parking lot that's like furthest from the FBO. If you're coming from the highway, so it would be furthest east. They've paved that new parking lot that's actually really close to the new exit when you're exiting out. And that one, that was a completely new addition. Now it's not very big. Now I parked right there when I went on my flight on Thursday. So, but I have done the overflow parking. I think there are plans to expand parking, and I know that but that new parking lot on the east was the first wave.
Yeah,
of
so
that.
it's like a phased kind of a thing.
I believe that's
it is, and we could have Michael Parks on at some point too. There is a plan to expand it. I'm not aware though of the plan to pave the area you're talking about.
Right.
I've not heard that. But they are doing a lot of buildings. The restaurant is a key. Michael Parks, I know, has been working on it. Michael will be at the Ready board meeting, and I can ask. He'll be there tomorrow. But the restaurant's a big deal, and the terminal. Keep in mind, the terminal just opened in late 2022. It's not even 2 years old, and it was so busy going there for the ceremony. DeCarlin Seawood and I got stuck in bumper to bumper traffic. That's how many people. Mike Alden was there. It was a big deal. In Columbia and Jefferson City should be proud. Jefferson City played a key role in that.
Yes.
Led by the mayor at the time, Carrie Turgeon, and her city council on both sides of the aisle. If it wasn't for Jefferson City, I'm not sure the project happens, but they contributed a sizable amount of money.
Good to see that collaboration.
Well, and to derail us for a second, going back to, we were talking about the St. Louis Arch and how some of the trams, the little elevators, got stuck yesterday for a couple hours. And I truthfully cannot think of a worse experience to have to live through. But Sam texted us at 874-9390, and he says, I was in college in St. Louis when the Cards won the World Series in '82. It was crazy downtown, including on the Arch grounds. I peed on the Arch that night, and I wasn't the only one.
What? That's like a crime now. Like, it's a national park, right?
Yeah, it is.
You'd be in big time
federal.
trouble.
Taking a leak on the Gateway Arch.
It's run by the U.S. Basically, it's under the control of the Park Service, National Park Service.
Yeah, you'd be their arch nemesis.
Yeah, that's years ago.
I think Hannah just sacrificed her hot with Hannah. Brian, would you like to do what's hot with Hauswirth coming up? I'm sorry.
I'll defer to Hannah.
Let's do what's hot with Hannah.
That is what's hot with Hannah. What are you talking about?
And we have some creative, fun things for you to listen to throughout the show. We're going to be having some fun with this election. Some parodies from the web. We have our own internal creative department, and their juices are flowing too. We'll play some of that as we go on. What do you mean? Oh, creative juices flow.
And that is pumpkin spice latte season, baby.
Here we go.
I made a post on that. Did you see?
Already?
I did.
Yeah.
And anyone who's been a part of the Wake Up fam for a while has probably been dreading this. They probably have the month of September circled on their calendar in red ink, and they've been not looking forward to this. However, I am here to regretfully inform you that it's getting earlier and earlier every year. They're now calling it Ogtober.
Oh, good.
But of course, the famous coffee chain, Starbucks, they're sort of most known for their pumpkin spice lattes. They kind of lead that charge. And in the past, the earliest that they have launched their pumpkin spice menu has been August 24th. That's when they launched last year. Now, there's a social media account that has been credited with guessing the release dates for the past couple of years, and they get it right. And he is reporting through his leaked sources at Starbucks that August 22nd, that is not even 10 days away. That is so soon. That is next Thursday. Now, if he's right, pumpkin spice latte season could officially be started. However, the retail side of things, they've already been started, I guess. Products are already hitting the grocery store shelves. I know we've had at least one Wake Up family member send us a picture of, I think it was a pumpkin spice cereal. Stephanie sent me an alcoholic pumpkin spice latte that comes in a can. And this article is reporting that those are already available for purchase in store. And I know that the same drive-through coffee chain has released their pumpkin-flavored retail products that you can buy at the grocery store. So, it's almost here, baby.
I will never understand Gen Z because you all want this fall coffee in August, but then you weirdos walk around drinking iced coffee all the time.
Oh, that's me. I'm iced coffee all year round.
So pumpkin spice iced?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
What's wrong with that? John, come on, you have my back, right?
I'm not a pumpkin spice guy, but maybe one pumpkin spice beer of a fall period.
Having said that, John, can we all agree that as long as it has caffeine, we're okay with it, whatever flavor?
It's the whole idea, pretty much.
But no, like the last several mornings, we've had this really beautiful, like fall weather.
Yeah, it has been.
It's been, low to mid 60s when I leave my house in the morning.
Not me.
And I can smell the
She's
pumpkin.
down in Palm Beach hanging out with Trump,
I can smell the pumpkin on the horizon.
Okay, now, Hannah, I'm sorry. Melissa says, Hannah, it's TOOOO early.
There's some
Well, yeah,
things,
but in 9 days.
like absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yes.
And there are some things that you have to miss to really want. And if it's available all the time to you, then it's not special. And so by extending the pumpkin spice, they should make you wait for it, right?
But I
there's
had
some
to wait for it.
anticipation. What, like 3 months?
No, I had to wait for it since last pumpkin spice season, which ended
started
in like November.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, now Lance is on Hannah's team. He says, I drink spice. one of the tramways that take you up to the top of the Gateway Arch and had to be rescued by the fire department. We were talking about some of the claustrophobia. And,
yeah, even just
right,
talking about this makes me want to throw up.
And some really interesting stories. Cindy says, my father and grandfather were both welders in the 60s on the Arch. Gary, this was a bit of trivia, John, I don't recall, said when the top section of the Arch was installed, remember I said I watched it as a little tot, and that must have been kindergarten or first or second grade, I don't remember. Maybe a little more than that. I remember they dropped that wedge-shaped section in. It took a while. I remember him having to maneuver. He texts us, Gary says, they had to pack it in dry ice to get it to fit.
That makes sense.
To shrink it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then let it expand in the heat. I don't remember exactly when it was. Man, that's some interesting trivia. Wow. Something else.
That's pretty cool.
Very informed and a vast experience, diversified experience in our audience here. 573-874-9390.
The Arch was finished in 1965.
Yeah, so I was
at the
a
end
little
of October.
tot. Yeah, I was like 6 years old then, I guess. Yeah.
Now I'm freaked out because I'm headed to the state fair, and Hannah says that the Arch ride reminds her of a rickety Ferris wheel. So I don't think I'll be going on any Ferris wheels anytime soon. Scary stuff.
Yeah.
So there's always a little fun that we like to have. I don't know, I like to have, and trying to creatively do. We always enjoy the parodies that are done in election season. You know, there's always a lot of fun. One of our creative geniuses here at Zimmer came up with, and he'll be doing more of these. We have a few in the can, and we're working on some more. This is one introducing Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate. So thought you'd enjoy it.
Hey there, this is Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. My pronouns are him, he. I'm also the running mate of the smartest and most sincere person I've ever known, Kamala Harris. Her pronouns are her, she. Now, some of my opponents are saying that I'm a bigger loser than our football team, the Minnesota Vikings. But what the heck, that's just not true. Under my watch as Minnesota governor, we made sure we got a tampon machine in all the men's bathrooms. And I was also governor when we had all them riots in Minneapolis. They almost burned the whole place down. But if you've ever been to that part of the city, you'd agree that's a big improvement. Now, I turned my back on the gun owners and pretty much all of Minnesotans years ago. And I can't wait to turn my back on the country when I'm elected vice president here in November. Minnesota Nice is a real thing, you know. We'll just screw you over behind your back so you don't really know what's happening. Well, I'm off to have some hot dish and potluck at a local church where I'll pretend I'm a Christian and a moderate Democrat. Well, we'll see y'all in November. Yeah, you betcha. Suckers.
Oh, he's got the Great White North thing going on there, eh?
Good work. And, he is a member of a very hyper-progressive, woke, liberal denomination, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. I heard a story, speaking of churches and the political scene, on the morning report with that comes on before us this morning, every day here on the Eagle. I heard a report of Tom Homan was on, the former director of the borders down there, and Tom was saying that there's millions of dollars going to non-governmental organizations, many of which are like Catholic Charities, Lutheran Family and Children's, and others that are really making bank on the Biden administration, paying them to take care of the illegals. I don't know whether they are sponsoring them, whether they're involved in the transport, but I think there's been stories on this, John. It's a real phenomenon, and you got to wonder if I don't know if anyone's connected with those charities. I mean, is this really a moneymaker for you guys out there? I'd hate to think that. I don't know.
I don't either. It's Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. I don't know if you're able to verify on this one.
Yeah, these NGOs. I know that the NGOs, I just didn't know that a lot of them, well, I know that there were some Catholic organizations that had been advocating for the immigrants coming across the border. And, many of them may have legitimate refugee claims, and I understand that. But how many don't? And if it's just an opportunity to make some bucks, I would hope that our very staid and august non-governmental, religiously affiliated organizations would not be involved in sort of being aiding and abetting the cross-border controversy. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see where it goes. In case you're just joining us, I'm curious what you all think of if you were able to take in some of the conversation last night between Trump and Elon Musk. Stephanie, you reported earlier that Elon is hoping to, condense that, maybe edit a little bit so that it'll be out for general distribution?
Yeah, I think it's already out to where you can go and replay it, but I think Elon tweeted something out like, can anyone put this down and do about an hour so we can reshare it?
Yeah.
So there are so many good nuggets. I do feel like it started off a bit slow, but then as they both relaxed a little bit, I think the conversation got really interesting, especially when they started talking energy and getting really deep down into the policy. So I think we'll see lots of snippets shared today, and of course we're seeing huge numbers. Both and Trump and Elon have both kind of been known to exaggerate a little bit. But I would say it's very hard for them to then say how many people actually viewed it, because again, not only was it shared on Spaces, but then people on YouTube and other platforms were live streaming the audio through Spaces onto their platforms, and so. I think the latest number I saw was Elon saying 1 billion people or something, 1 billion views. I don't know. But a lot of people certainly took part in that and watched it. And I think it was just what an interesting forum and such a stark contrast, not only from what we've seen out of Joe Biden, but also from Kamala, who won't even do any media appearances, let alone a long form, multiple hour free form conversation.
And did you see where Newsweek, or was it Time, Newsweek, one of them, had her on the cover, but they didn't do an interview. They have this iconic looking cover.
Because she doesn't do interviews.
I know, but I mean.
Well, she said sometime before the end of the month, though, guys.
And didn't she finally agree to one debate, like the September debate? I believe she has agreed to a single one.
Yeah, September 10th.
I just think it's just.
On ABC, though. It's not Fox like he was asking for.
Uh-huh.
I mean, how sick is that, though, to put someone, that's journalistic malpractice, to put someone on the cover of your magazine who's the now heir apparent in their eyes to the presidency, and you don't have an interview with her, and you don't say, hey, call it a quid pro quo. It's like, we're not putting you and coronating you on our cover. It almost is like a Person of the Year cover without, saying a few words. And then listen to this. Speaking about a complicit media. Okay, so to picture this. We're in the press briefing room. KJP is holding forth. This is a Washington Post, and I put this in skeptical airfinger quotes. This is a Washington Post journalist who asks this question ahead of the Musk-Trump Spaces conversation.
Elon Musk is slated to interview Donald Trump tonight on X. I don't know if the president is going to tune in. Feel free to say if he is or not. But I think that misinformation on Twitter is not just a campaign issue. It's a America issue. What role does the White House or the president have in sort of stopping that, or stopping the spread of that, or sort of intervening in that? Some of that was about campaign misinformation, but it's a wider thing, right?
Yeah, no, and you've heard us talk about this many times from here, about the responsibilities that social media platforms have when it comes to misinformation, disinformation. Don't have anything to read out from here about specific ways that we're working on it, but we believe that they have the responsibility. These are private companies, so we're also mindful of that too. But look, it is. I think it is incredibly important to call that out as you're doing.
I'm almost speechless. This, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to that, you listen to that exchange. That's a Washington Post, formerly a respected newspaper reporter, or a reporter from a formerly respected newspaper. He's apparently the arbiter of the truth, and KJP's working on it, how to muzzle in these rogue spreaders of misinformation.
You're almost speechless, and I think Attorney General Andrew Bailey's hair is on fire because he's been all over this, right? With the Biden administration trying to pressure folks to censor speech. But it's mind blowing, Randy, that it was all said out loud, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, up to now, we knew they were doing it, but they didn't really say it. They came out and said it.
Yeah.
That's mind blowing.
Something else.
Of course, on top of that, I don't know if you saw where the European Union, was it one of the leaders or someone in charge, sent a letter to Elon Musk.
Yeah, and we're saying that potentially that the conversation would violate something and that they were going to suppress it. I mean, it's just, yeah.
This was a tweet from, or a letter from whoever Thierry, Thierry Breton, basically saying that they're going to hold Elon Musk to his feet to the fire to comply with the Digital Services Act, which, makes sure that since you control a platform, Mr. Musk, with over 300 million users worldwide, of which 1/3 is in the EU, which has been designated as, let's talk about Big Brother, all in capitals, very large online platform. So now they're designating, social media as some kind of target now for the EU. It says the amplification of harmful content in connection with relevant events, including live streaming, which if unaddressed might increase the risk profile of X and generate detrimental effects on civic discourse and public security. 1984, we're here. This is Big Brother on an international scale in the White House press briefing room. We're here.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And another interesting tidbit about last night, which I really enjoyed, and I saw this take, was folks were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so interesting and intimate in a long form interview in like."
Essentialist food is never fun, even if you're on vacation, but it's not unusual to pay for the through the nose for a stale sandwich or a subpar sushi when stuck at the airport. So here we go. This guy said, I shelled out $26 for a basic Whopper Junior meal and an original chicken sandwich from Burger King at San Francisco International. Another guy said he spent $12.50 for a single banana in Istanbul. Another guy at the airport said he spent $63 for a really bad doner kebab, kind of like a gyros. Another traveler paid $9 a bottle for water in Geneva. Wait for it, Switzerland. Oslo, Norway. A traveler paid $48 for a beer and a chicken sandwich. And another guy spent $50 on one glass of wine at Terminal 5 at New York's JFK. 2 banh mi sandwiches and 2 coffees in Saigon were $30. Best ones we could find. $44 for salt and vinegar Lay's chips at LaGuardia in New York City. Steph, $28 for a small can of Liquid Death at LAX. And 2 bratwursts and a Pabst Blue Ribbon beer for $53 at Milwaukee International Airport. And now you know why, I don't know, sneak the Cheez-Its in your carry-on, and you know the rest of that story, right?
You'll never find me without like an entire bag of snacks packed, and as well as like drink mixes and other things. So that is my number one tip. And then my other tip, especially for families, if you're traveling a lot and you have to make connections like we do here in Columbia, is those airline lounges are a savior. And so a lot of the airline lounges, the food's free once you're admitted. And so for like a family of 5, I agree. I've done like the $30 fast food meal in the airport, but times that by 5 for my family. Wow. And so that airport lounge, unlimited soda, unlimited M&Ms, unlimited avocado toast, unlimited, not like finger foods and stuff.
Those are very random offerings.
Not really.
Do you have to
avocado toast and M&Ms?
Is that like frequent flyer miles?
You can get credit cards that you pay for. So there's an American credit card that allows you into all the American Airlines lounges, the Admirals lounges, and then if you have an Amex Platinum, you can get into the Centurion lounges. But they're not. Centurions aren't in every airport. So there's like not one in Chicago, but there is one in Dallas. And Centurions.
Back in the day, the only game in town was the USO lounge at a lot of the major airports.
Well, and the Centurion has been having hot food, and so the Admirals, the American one, has upgraded, and they're now serving hot food. So, like protein, and like you can actually eat it for a meal. And so literally it's $0, and they serve like well drinks and bargain booze for like tap beer for free. I'm pretty sure you can always order something a little bit nicer and pay. But if you travel a lot, it saves
you just have to
money.
Just have to pay the credit card fee.
Yep.
Okay. So, now you paid. Didn't you recently?
Here we go.
Didn't you?
Randy's thinking, oh, yeah.
No, I probably won't.
The
do
other
that.
thing, though,
how can you pack your stuff? I didn't think you could pack snacks and get them through TSA.
Not liquids, but food. Yeah,
you can.
Yeah,
I didn't know
for
that.
sure. But my travel agent actually, and they're starting to crack down on this. But if you travel internationally, but not a lot, a lot of these lounges you can pay for a day pass, and the day pass is about $50. So based on those prices, John was saying, if you're going to be there for a couple hours, $50 is a steal. And I don't know what it is today, but I think I had done that initially.
Don't some of those lounges have like little pods that you can take a nap in?
They do, and they have
semi-private
like business areas. I got a massage recently in one, and the Amex one was having fresh made like ice cream in the last one, so that was kind of fun.
Okay, a new revelation from Stephanie Bell on travel tips. And
see,
hacks.
I told you who'd know the real story.
There you go. Yeah, it does get you infuriated, the prices you can pay at some of these places.
You got.
knows that better than Brad Jones, the Missouri director of the NFIB, National Federation of Independent Business. Brad, how you be?
Good morning, gang. How's everybody this morning? It does look a little Londonish this morning. I've enjoyed all the conversations this morning, by the way.
Yeah. Have you ever been up in the arch and gotten stranded?
Let me tell you something, Randy. That arch pretty much personifies two of the biggest fears I have on this planet. One is claustrophobia, and the other is heights.
Okay.
I am going to. Here's what I will do for all of your listeners. I will not go up in the arch because when I do, it will fall over. This is going to happen in my mind. If I go up in the arch, the gateway to the west will be no more. It will be falling over. So just to avoid that and heartbreak of St. Louis and the nation, I'm not going up into the arch. That is what I do as a great American and patriot that I am.
Okay.
So there we go.
Making room for the throngs that want to go up in the arch. What a gracious guy you are. That's wonderful.
I am. And it just the thought of crawling into, I think you even used the word pod. Getting into a pod and then riding up and things going creak. I've heard all the stories. My dad actually asked me one time. We got stuck in St. Louis waiting for a train thing one time. He goes, "Hey, you want to go up in the arch?" Even at about 7 or 8 years old, I said, "Dad, I'm good. No, I don't need to go up there."
Brad, this time of month, the report comes out with your optimism index from the NFIB, and what are the highlights?
Came out this morning. It always comes out just about 2 hours. You and I get it about the same time. It's once again, it's sort of a report of contradictions. The optimism index was up 2.2%, which is a pretty big jump. It went up to 93.7, which none of the listeners care about. But on the index, it did go up. Now, the question, I guess, is why? And I think probably it has to do a little bit. I mean, they always talk about seasonally adjusted in this thing, which means you kind of mellow things out depending on what time of the year it is. But I've got to think that people get out and they buy maybe a little more in the summertime. They're out more in the summer, and so maybe that's part of it. On the flip side of this, jumping up 4 points to 25%, which is a whole quarter of our membership, says that inflation is still their number one problem. So as much as we crow about the fact that inflation is coming down a little bit, it's not down all the way. I mean, we are still having problems. And when you look at two of the major factors for small business that lead to inflation, you're looking at increasing compensation and increasing prices. So, I always look at you look at the economy and you look at small business in general as far as an economic engine, and it is a gumbo. It's a lot of things. There's a lot of things and ingredients that go into it, and some of them make it taste really bad, and some of them make it okay. But the ones that make it taste really bad are the fact that you still got small business people out there that are having to raise their prices almost monthly to keep up with what they're having to pay now in compensation, which is also still going up. As long as you've got those two things working in tandem and they're going up, your inflation rate is not going to be coming down exponentially. It's not going to be coming down quickly. Now, saying that, both of those two factors did come down just a little bit for the month of July. So, you can read this any way that you want to, but the way I look at it is they are still bogged down in uncertainty. They don't know exactly what is going to happen. And Bill Dunkelberg is our economist, and he is fantastic. He is the most respected economist in the country, and he wrote a great article in Forbes Small Business. I'm just going to read this because he says it so well as the summary, and he says several major uncertainties will be resolved in the coming months. A presidential election, possible changes in quote-unquote management at major regulatory agencies, the Federal Reserve's decision about interest rates, and major developments in global conflict that impact our economy. For the moment, owners are quote-unquote in the dumps and face a large number of uncertainties. As these are resolved, uncertainty will decline. Whether optimism increases or falls will depend on how the uncertainties are resolved. And I think Bill nails it. I really do. I still think, Randy and gang, that I think we are in a hunker down mode, and I think you're kind of seeing that. I do believe that even as you look at the buying habits of folks, they seem to be pulling back just a little bit. But I mean, there's still such big things out there that the small business folks are looking at and going, you know what? Well, and one of the biggest ones is, we asked the question, how do you feel about the economy for the next 6 months? And you've only got 8% of our members that are expecting better business conditions in the next 6 months. I mean, that's abysmal. I mean, if you look at it, they had 53% in 2020. So 8% to 10% of our members really are not too bullish on what's going to happen in the next 6 months. So that's kind of what came out for the July report.
Brad, the one factor that we seem to always pick up on the July report, I pulled it up and it said 57% of small business owners looking for staff, 86% are reporting they've had no or few qualified applicants. What do you do?
Well, I know, John, and you have to raise compensation. And so we've been right around the last couple of months. We've been about 38% of our membership have jobs they still can't fill. So you've got a certain percentage of them, 57%, I guess, that tried to hire last month. 86% of them couldn't find the people that they needed. Now, let me tell you one thing about that, too, John, is that 57 number has actually been going down. So I think we're seeing fewer small businesses even trying to hire people. I think it's been such a frustrating thing for them to try to get done that a lot of them have just been trying to, I think, get by and make it with the staff that they've got. And we all know who that plops down on. The business owner is usually going then from 60 hours a week to 80 hours a week. And at some point, if you run the horses hard enough, they're going to say, that's it, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And that's certainly a factor in why a lot of small businesses decide to pack it up.
Brad Jones, again, is our guest. He's with the NFIB Missouri, president of NFIB Missouri. He is live here, 816 93.9 The Eagle, News Radio 950 KWS. We're talking about the business situation, inflation, prices, being able to hire, et cetera. Obviously, prices are impacting rent here in Columbia and in Jefferson City as well. Senator Bernie Sanders, outspoken senator and highly regarded on the Democratic side on Capitol Hill, he says there's not a single state in America where you can afford a 2-bedroom apartment while earning the minimum wage. And he says something is wrong with this picture, Brad. He writes this on Twitter this morning, quote, Senator Bernie Sanders, no more excuses, tax billionaires, raise the minimum wage, build more affordable housing, end of quote. Your thoughts on that and the idea of raising the minimum wage? He's saying these people can't afford apartments.
Yeah, what's Bernie want to raise it to?
He didn't give an amount, but obviously higher than what it is now.
Okay. All right, great. Why don't we just raise it to about $50 an hour? The unemployment rate will skyrocket. Your burger will cost $25. And by the way, the people that lost their jobs are going to have to pay that extra amount of money. The minimum wage is not an economic issue. It's a political issue. And I've always said that, and that makes people mad. But, if the minimum wage was started as a starting wage, it never was meant to be a living wage. We're trying to make it that. And I realize that it is higher. It's higher in Missouri. It's higher everywhere. But, you've also got to realize it's just, I mean, Walter Johnson, University of Missouri, Econ 101. You push in on the balloon someplace, it's going to come out someplace else. So that's my really short answer on what we do about the minimum wage.
Brad, I guess in that context, I'd like us to hear your take on the primary just finished a week ago. What does that tell you about pros, cons, where the business environment will be under, assuming the majority are all of the statewide elected officials, like at the executive level, or prevail from the GOP, and a little preview of the Congress or the General Assembly. What do you think it means for small business?
Well, I think overall, Randy, I think it's positive. I really do. But as some of us that have experienced a whole lot more races than others, is that a nice, polite way of putting that? There has never been, and I know Brian and John will laugh. There has never been a Wednesday after either primary or general election in my 40-something years of doing this that I haven't scratched my head and said, man, I didn't see that coming. How did that happen? And it's
specifically
on that last Tuesday too.
Specifically, what do you mean? Give us a couple examples.
Well, I think there's always some incumbents. There's a couple of incumbents that get beat. And the interesting thing too, Randy, I think, is the fact that we sit in Jeff City. And we are not in other people's backyards, or I was going to say we're not in somebody else's bedroom, but to be more specific, you don't know what's going on sometimes in certain districts. Lisa Thomas, great supporter of small business down at the Lake of the Ozarks, she got beat. I haven't got a clue. Chris Sander over in Kansas City, another great supporter, actually an NFIB member, got beat. I have no clue. We have a lieutenant governor. I didn't see that one. I didn't see that one coming either. So it's just, I'm not saying good, bad. I'm just saying, and I think there was a couple of Democrats also that lost their income.
You know what saddened me about the Thomas defeat? She's a psychiatrist. She's a voice for healthcare. And I think healthcare prospects for small business, which I know is one of the driving cost factors, that doesn't fare well. I've had conversations with her. Her voice will be missed. Stephanie?
Now, also in relation to the primary, we just voted on a child care measure that went down, and that was a big focus by business groups last year in the session of addressing that beyond just workforce. You think that'll be another hot topic this session?
Yeah, Steph, I do. And, I have heard from members, and especially small business members that are in certain areas of the state, and I think it will be a big issue because in the rural areas, for small business, oftentimes your health care is too expensive and you can't do anything, and in the rural areas it just doesn't exist, and so it's not just a problem for your employees, but I mean you've got employers that have children too, and it's very difficult sometimes when things happen at child care or there is no child care that they've got to drop everything and try to get home, or, in a lot of cases, they're just staying home. And I mean, we've got 38% of small businesses out there that are looking for people. And I'm wondering how many of them have to stay home because they just absolutely can't afford or don't have any health care or child care. So, yes.
because technology was up pretty big yesterday while other sectors like real estate and communication services were down. Now, there's a lot of things I want the government to stay away from. And I don't know why they're always in the cheese business, why they're all up in our business about our cheese. And I like to sometimes look at the number one story in the Wall Street Journal. And honestly, when I looked this morning, I really thought it was going to be about Elon Musk and Trump. But still beating that story out on the Wall Street Journal as the number one story is what the government's going to do about dairy. And how much, and the question is, how much, this is the headline, how much cheese should you eat? You won't like the answer. And it's one of my favorite foods. I love cheese, but apparently internally, the health experts, and Randy's looking at me like, yep. And now we know Randy loves his cheese. He loves his low-fat skim mozzarella in the morning.
So
for
you
breakfast.
admit it's cheese? It's real cheese?
I wouldn't really call that cheese. But apparently the daily dairy recommendation has been 3 servings, basically, which is quite a lot. 3 servings of dairy, and now apparently the experts are weighing in and saying, actually, probably because of the high fat nature of many dairy products, maybe you should only have 1 serving a day, and that amounts to only 1.5 ounces of cheese.
That's just another attack on the dairy industry.
So sad. So I wanted to remind everybody, if you're headed to the state fair, you can visit the Gherkin Dairy Center, which has not only the butter cow sculpture, but also apparently there's an inaugural ice cream flavor of the fair selected by Governor Mike Parson himself. It's Kingdom Crunch, featuring layers of vanilla soft serve ice cream,
if you see ones that you'd like to share with the family. I mean, it's pretty profound when you really start accounting for all of the absolutely backwards policies that she's either endorsed or presided over. Man, it's just such a wide lane for Trump Vance to just take this thing in a huge landslide. And the polls aren't saying that right now, but, she's still riding on the honeymoon. We'll have to see. Maybe last night broke through a little ice with, I think, a lot of people. How many people were on that Trump-Musk conversation, Stephanie?
How many people are on it? I think almost a million. According to Elon Musk, I think like a billion, but
I saw that
20 million?
21 million is what I saw on the platform. But Steph, you were saying that some people were sort of live streaming it to other platforms.
That's how I initially got it, because I kept trying to get into the space and it wasn't letting me in. And so there was someone who was doing a YouTube live stream and they were in the space. So I was able to watch their show on YouTube and hear the conversation. So yeah, I think when you look at just the raw numbers on the space on X, I don't think it fully shows you how many people really tuned in.
Yeah. And I think, the question will be, how active and how effective will the various campaigns be on social media? I think we've really seen a blitz by the Harris campaign. And one commentator, actually a GOP analyst I heard yesterday, said, for the social media platforms that really right now seem to be dominated by Harris reinventing herself and just flip-flopping on almost every policy, running like Trump. Trump said that last night. Yeah, she's running like Trump. Is the first person you hear say, I'm going to forgive taxes on tips? Will that be the person that gets the credit? Not realizing Trump's been saying that since June. A lot of it is a race to who gets the word out first on the same policies, the way it's sounding.
In some instances, and in that way, I'm not super happy about that, because the numbers are starting to come out about what that would mean for the deficit and how much money that would actually cost the government. And of course, we know that we've already got problems with spending. So I don't think it's who says it first, but I do think it's about who can get their message out. And certainly with what we saw yesterday with everyone trying to tamp down on X and on Trump and with the hacking, they're going to try to keep Trump's message from getting out. But I think, I think what's he been saying, too big to rig. I mean, I think there are so many people like all of these other streamers who are doing their part to try to get his message out. And I think, and he's willing to do the work, right? Like Kamala won't do interviews. She's not taking questions. And I think the most frequent reaction I saw after the space last night was, let's make this a regular thing, and Elon and Trump should sit down once a week and have a fireside chat, and let's do more of this. And people were saying, after last night's performance by Trump, why would he debate Kamala? Why wouldn't he just do stuff like this? Because he can talk freely and openly and share his perspective. I do think he's going to debate her, but I think it's changing the game. It's changing how we consume media, how we do politics. And I would remind folks, there were a lot of folks around the time, I know Hannah had some tweets about this around the time of the assassination attempt of, oh my gosh, we need live podcasts or something. And Hannah's going, we're like, folks, that's radio. And
we were wall to wall with our coverage of that for hours.
If you wanted instantaneous coverage, you could have just turned on the dial or got on our app. Same for last night. People are like, oh, this space with this long form interview with important people is so great. And I saw a couple of people pointing out, that's radio. What's old is new again, and new is old. And so anyway, turn on your radio, folks. I promise you we're going to be live and local talking about that day's news. But certainly I think Elon Musk's conversations with Trump was more like what you see, not on Sunday shows, and more like what you hear, I think, on many radio stations.
Mm-hmm. True or false? 573-874-9390. Just true or false, objectively. On teleprompter, speaking hope and joy and fairness and optimism and future, Kamala Harris is quite impressive. True or false?
She does a good job. She's pretty slick.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, compared to what? Compared to Biden?
Compared to Trump?
Yeah.
I think compared to Trump, she's on, when she is only on teleprompter reading the same speech over and over and over. I think she's quite effective.
I think whoever she's got now writing is much better because if you recall at the very beginning, I think she went through a couple of speechwriters because it was clear she was reading her speeches and they were insane and they were not well done. And so whoever's writing for her right now is doing, I think, a better job than when she was initially elected. And I think she's dangerous, certainly.
I'm saying the same thing you are.
She's been unburdened by what has been.
Right. You're right. And I'm just saying we shouldn't take her lightly. And I think that in our day-to-day discussions with people, it's incumbent on us to carry the water. Trump and Vance can't do it alone. They've got so many headwinds. They can't get a reasonable interview. Dana Bash was always pushing back at J.D. Vance when he was trying to say, you ask Kamala the question. Don't ask me to answer it for her. But I think it's incumbent on us. We cannot lose this election. We cannot lose this election up and down. I think this is existentially a threat. Kamala Harris is an existential threat to the republic. Think about the judiciary. Your law partner, Mark Ellinger, wrote about 3 radical federal judiciary nominees, and he chronicles that in a town hall article a week or so ago. And look, we haven't even talked about the impact on the judiciary and how that really impacts our lives, these decisions that come down to very personal matters in our lives, and how Donald Trump was so successful in beginning to turn that ship around at the Supreme Court and the federal level. We need to continue that momentum, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, there are 3 judges that are pending that some of them have either no experience or ties to some really radical groups, have been really soft on crime, basically treated, convicted child molesters with kid gloves and having comments about it that says, well, we need to be considerate here of the actual perpetrator. And so these are not the people we want deciding our cases because we have to have a country that respects rule of law. And one of Trump's biggest legacies and biggest accomplishments certainly were not only his Supreme Court opinions, but he had more judicial opinions across the federal court system. These are lifetime appointments, and so they really matter.
And for her to say she doesn't want to abolish private insurance, and on a larger way, I just think that the current disruption going on in healthcare is the healthiest thing ever. It's a little messy now, and it hasn't all been worked out, but various new options for getting healthcare rather than traditional big insurance or big government insurance or more government insurance. Look, we've got to continue letting those free market, innovative, disruptive principles happen because that'll improve people's healthcare and access. Ultimately, she wants to go back the other way. She wants to make this nationalized healthcare. Ask your friends in Canada how that's working out. Ask your friends in the UK how that works out. Oh, yeah, if you have a sniffle or a UTI or a poison ivy rash, yeah, okay, fine. But if you have something serious, ask them how it's working out. If you want a delayed diagnosis in something, yeah, talk to those friends there. And these are the things that are going to impact our lives, and this is why we cannot lose. But I fret that if we don't manage this campaign properly, not only J.D. Vance and Trump and the campaign, but every one of us carrying that water, I'm worried what'll happen.
My gut feeling on it, Randy, it's a huge election, but from the Democratic perspective, it also is a huge election because they basically had to pull their nominee was pulled at the last minute, and obviously Vice President Harris has stepped in. She is leading in a number of battleground states according to the polls. But for Republicans, the thing that really sticks out to me is I look at various polls, and who knows how accurate they are to begin with on either side. But when you look at younger voters, let's say 18 to 34, those voters overwhelmingly are supporting Democrats. Up and down the ballot, including
and it's
Vice
the social issues.
But Hannah, I'm telling you, in the 80s, the Mizzou campus was loaded with Reagan Republicans, and he came in here, and pro-life was up and down the ballot. Maybe times are different, but it's just I'm really surprised by that the young people are that very. I mean, overwhelmingly, it appears to me.
I wonder why so many men are so ardently marching, giving money to, and so ardent. Pete Buttigieg said it on Guys for Kamala the other day. He said it out loud. When women have the freedom for abortion, men's lives are more free. Lives are better. He said something like that. I've got the quote here. Why are so many men
it's all about
supporting...
the spin.
Huh?
It's all about the spin, especially with Pete Buttigieg.
Why are so many men supporting widely open abortion? I'm just asking.
I think
I'm
it's
just
Are they
asking.
supporting that, or are they just supporting women having that choice?
Oh, yeah, of course. They're just supporting women having freedom. That's what it's about. Absolutely.
Well, no, it's
Come
what
on,
I'm saying
Hannah.
is
You got to be kidding me.
what I'm saying.
Hookup society?
What I'm saying is dudes love to feel like they're the hero. So, as men, we have to stand up for these helpless damsels in distress and get them these, quote, rights that they deserve. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Good.
I think it's much like Hannah when we saw the lady, the white women, and it's like mainly suburban women who were criticizing Republicans, saying that we are the ones oppressing these people.
Yeah.
When many people of color were on the stage at the RNC saying that the Republican Party was the one that was going to protect them and provide them opportunity and all of that. It's like men speaking for women, and what we see on the left is white suburban women speaking on behalf of people of color.
Yeah, it's often the people who know the least that are the loudest.
I fully support women aspiring to build things and make a better mousetrap and be the best lawyer and be the president if it needs be. That's different than supporting women's right to destroy God's creation. Those are two vastly, hugely different things.
Well, and we're going to learn today those ballot measures. We'll get a decision today on what's certified for the ballot.
One would increase the minimum wage too. Obviously, that's something that is out there. But I think in this electorate, just obviously with how people are and their views, Ronald Reagan wins landslides in 1980 and 1984. I don't know about if he were on the ballot today. I don't know. Maybe times have changed, et cetera. But if you look
might have had another Jimmy Carter term.
Yeah, I mean, you just never know. I mean, it's just, obviously, you look at Twitter, and I know Stephanie points
They were making a decision on 4 of them today. The signatures were submitted for an Osage River casino, for sports betting, for raising the minimum wage, and then for abortion. Okay. Obviously, the abortion measure is the one that's being talked about the most, so we'll find out if those got enough signatures to be on the ballot. The secretary has to make a certification. Today is the deadline. We also have news yesterday out about a different ballot measure that will be on the November ballot, and that's the one, because there's 2 ways to put something on the ballot. One would be straight out of the legislature, a referral of a resolution, or through the signature process. And so the 2, obviously, that we voted on in August came out of the legislature. Right. One that we expect to vote on and that we will be voting on in November is regarded to non-citizen voting and to banning ranked choice voting. There was a challenge in Cole County Circuit Court to that, the ballot language of that measure, and Judge Cotton Walker ruled that the summary statement, the ballot language, was essentially fair and sufficient. And I suspect we'll still see an appeal there. But that case, I believe, was decided yesterday.
Could that appeal somehow outlive the election, or will they generally try to settle that pretty soon?
They will expedite it, especially if there might be some sort of infirmity with the ballot language, because they're going to want a fair and sufficient ballot language to appear on the ballot. And so there is a deadline at which the court can no longer change the language on the ballot, because obviously even before we start absentee voting, we do things like the ballots get printed and they do military and that kind of thing. So it actually is well in advance of the election of when that ballot has to be printed and decided. Yeah.
Well, and Jay Ashcroft lost this battle about the ballot language on the abortion IP petition earlier on, right?
Right.
So we'll see what happens on this one. Yep. This isn't quite as inflammatory. I mean, it's a different level of controversy. Mm-hmm. John, what's on your leftover plate, brother?
Well, we're kind of watching what's going to transpire in the Middle East. It sounds like Israelis in the U.S. and Egypt and Qatar and all of them, Hamas, I guess, are going to sit down and potentially talk about a ceasefire, but then the whole angle looming large is a potential for an Iranian reprisal after the Israeli assassination of the Hamas leader in Iran. So we're kind of waiting to see, and they're sending in more warships from the U.S. to stand by, carrier battle groups, subs, whole 9 yards.
And we'll continue to just to keep an eye on the campaigns. I think that last night, probably along with J.D. Vance's interview with Dana Bash, and then last night, Elon Musk and Donald Trump's conversation, probably ruined, or attempted to be ruined and thwarted by some kind of a cyber attack on the servers there. I think it's going to launch a turnaround in terms of the aggressiveness with which they're messaging these policy positions of Kamala Harris, how destructive they are, and the flip-flopping that they are.
I think you're right. And of course, we will see some of those Democrats and Republicans facing off in our November statewide elections will be together.